Lance Laudato.
Ako, si Johan Michael Coronela.
Pagkiligdat, umandak, bagong kat at bago si halina, bigyang doon. Ang tungkol sa ating konstitusyon.
Sama niyo kami.
Kami ang
Grabe!
Ano nga ba ang konstitusyon at bakit kailangan na pag-aralan natin ito? How well do you know the supreme law of the land? Ang konstitusyon ay isang sistema para sa pamahalaan na nakakode bilang isang nakasulat na dokumento na naglalaman ng mga pangunahing batas at prinsipyo.
Karaniwan itong naglalaman ng mga pangunahing prinsipyong pampolitika at nagtatatag ng istruktura, pamamaraan, kapangyarihan at tungkulin ng isang pamahalaan.
Ng isang konstitusyon kung paano inorganisa ang lahat ng elemento ng pamahalaan at kung paano inukit ang kapangyarihan sa iba't ibang unit ng politika.
Naglalaman ito ng mga alituntunin tungkol sa kung anong kapangyarihan ang ginagamit, sino ang humahawak nito at kung kanino ito hawak sa pamamahala ng isang bansa.
At bilang isang uri ng kasunduan o kontrata sa pagitan ng mga nasa kapangyarihan at ng mga sumasailalim sa kapangyarihang ito.
Ito ay tumutukoy sa mga karapatan at tungkulin ng mga mamamayan at mga aparato na nagpapanatili sa mga kapangyarihan na sa kontrol.
Layunin ng saligang batas. Ito ang nagsisilbing pinakamataas o pangunahing batas.
Ito ay nagtatatag ng pangunahing balangkas at pinagbabatayan ng mga prinsipyo ng pamahalaan o batas konstitusyonal na nagmula sa nakasulat na konstitusyon ng bansa.
Tinatag at ginagabayan nito ang mga tungkulin at kapangyarihan ng pamahalaan at ang mga tungkulin at karapatan ng mga mamayan at residente nito.
Ang konstitusyon ay isang batas na direkta mula sa mga tao.
Ang konstitusyon ay nagsasaad lamang ng pangkalahatang balangkas ng batas.
Ang konstitusyon ay inalaan hindi lamang upang matugunan ang mga umiiral na kondisyon, ngunit upang pamahalaan ang hinaharap.
Ano nga ba ang batas? Nagbibigay ito ng mga detalye ng paksang tinatalakay nito.
Na nilayon upang matugunan ang mga umiiral na kondisyon lamang.
Ang batas ay umaayon sa konstitusyon.
Ngayon na nalaman na natin kung ano ang definition ng konstitusyon, ano nga ba ang mga values ng isang mamamayan na nakasaad sa preamble of the Philippines Constitution. The different values of a citizen stated in the preamble of the Philippines Constitution are faith in God, unity, patriotism, work, respect for life, respect for law and government, truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, peace, promotion of the common good, concern for the family and future generations. To further understand about the 1973 and 1987 Constitution, let us start with a fun fact.
Did you know more than
Did you know that for every change in the Constitution in the Philippines, the President released a proclamation to commemorate the date when the new charter took effect? This day is called Constitution Day. Of all the constitutional changes the country went through, it's only the 1943 Constitution which did not have a corresponding proclamation. President Corazon C. Aquino, through Proclamation number 211 of 1988, assigned February 2 of each year as Constitution Day to mark the new 1987 Constitution.
constitutions? The 5 constitutions started with the country's independence in 1898. The 1899 Malolos Constitution, the 1935 Constitution, the 1943 Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, the 1987 Constitution. The 1973 Constitution, according to former Aquino spokesman Teodoro Locsin Jr., was never ratified as the process conducted by then President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. met strong opposition.
So now, the Aquino government had 3 options with regard to the law of the land. To revert to the 1935 Constitution, but because Marcos abolished the bicameral legislature, they had to resort to general elections. To retain the 1973 Constitution and be granted the power to make reforms. This was shut down by Aquino as she did not want to derive legitimacy and power from the very institutions that she fought. To start anew and break from the vestiges of the disgraced dictatorship.
Now, it's all about the 1987 Constitutional Commission drafted the Philippines Constitution we now know.
President Corazon Aquino in April 1987 created through Proclamation No. 9 the 1987 Constitutional Commission or CONCOM, which was responsible for drafting a replacement for 1973 Constitution. The new Constitution, she said, should be truly reflective of the aspiration and ideals of the Filipino people. The 1987 CONCOM was composed of 48 individuals who represented all sectors in the country, including, among others, Bishop Teodoro Bacani, former Supreme Court Chief Justice Roberto Concepcion, former Labor Minister, and eventually Senator and Foreign Affairs Secretary Blas Apo. Ateneo de Manila University, President Father Joaquin Berna SG, and University of the Philippines Student Council Chairperson, now Commission of Human Rights Chair, Chito Gaston.
But also several issues were the subject of heated discussion within CONCOM. The proceedings in relation to the drafting of 1987 Philippines Constitution, just like other important legal documents in the country, were in no doubt not without conflict. According to accounts, members of the CONCOM engaged in heated debates during the various sessions on many issues, including the death penalty, economic policies and reform, form of government, and even the retention of American military bases in Clark and Subic, among others. The CONCOM was able to finish its work after more or less 111 days. According to PAMA, on October 12, 1986, the draft constitution was passed with 44 delegates voting for it and 2 against, and was presented to Aquino 3 days after.
Did you know more than 3/4 of votes were in favor of the ratification of the 1987 Philippines Constitution?
February 2, 1987, a national plebiscite was held after a nationwide information campaign on the draft constitution. The question voters had to answer was, do you vote for the ratification of proposed constitution of the Republic of the Philippines with the ordinance appended thereto? The result of the 1987 plebiscite, canvassed by the Commission of Election based on returns from 83,288 precincts, or a total of 21,785,216 votes across the Philippines, are as follows. Number of votes. Affirmative votes is 16,622,111. Negative votes is 6,953,375. Abstentions 209,730. On February 11, 1987, through Proclamation Number 58, Aquino announced the results of plebiscite and proclaimed the 1987 Philippines Constitution ratified. It took effect the same day.
Film director Lino Brocka was among the members who walked out from the CONCOM. Lino Brocka, a filmmaker known for his films which explored social realities, was part of the CONCOM. However, the heated discussions and disapprovals of certain provisions led him and other CONCOM members to walk out of the sessions. Brocka eventually sent a letter on August 28, 1986 to the Commission stating that he had informed President Cory Aquino of his irrevocable resignation. The 48 was reduced by 1. Palma said during his closing remarks at the closing session of the CONCOM. The late filmmaker, posthumously recognized as National Artist for Film in 1997, is credited for inserting the Freedom of Expression clause in Article 3, Section 4 as the word freedom is more expansive. It has a wider scope and it would refer to means of expression other than speech.
Yes, that is quite clear. In spite of any result of any constitutional convention, I have no intention of running for a third term. Don't you think that 2 terms is enough for any man?
Parts of the 1987 Constitution. The Constitution is divided into 18 parts, excluding the preamble, called articles. The articles are as follows. Article 1, National Territory. Article 2, Declaration of Principles and State Policies. Article 3, Bill of Rights. Article 4, Citizenship. Article 5, Suffrage. Article 6, the Legislative Department. Article 7, the Executive Department. Article 8, the Judicial Department. Article 9, Constitutional Commissions. Article 10, Local Government. Article 11, Accountability of Public Officers. Article 12, National Economy and Patrimony. Article 13, Social Justice and Human Rights. Article 14, Education, Science and Technology, Arts, Culture and Sports. Article 15, the Family. Article 16, General Provisions. Article 17, Amendments and Provisions. Article 18, Transitory Provisions.
Now, to understand the 1973 Constitution, let us do a fact check. Claim: Former President Marcos wrote the 1973 Constitution. Rating: false. The facts: it was the 1971 Constitutional Convention composed of 320 delegates elected from all around the country that drafted the 1973 Constitution. The claim can be found in a post made on January 18 by the Facebook page Filipino Culture with about 1,000 reactions, 94 comments, and 75 shares. The post reads, FYI, ang 90% ng nilalaman ng 1987 Constitution ay galing lang din sa 1973 Constitution na sinulat ni Marcos kasama ang Bill of Rights. Ang dapat lang tanggalin dyan ay yung ilang binago ng mga aliporis ni Cory. As of now, the post had about 1,000 reactions, 94 comments, and 75 shares. The claim that Marcos wrote the 1973 Constitution is false.
It was not Marcos himself who wrote the 1973 Constitution. Instead, it was drafted by the 1971 Constitutional Convention. It was composed of 320 delegates elected in November 10, 1970 from all around the country and assembled on June 1, 1971.
After that, citizens' assemblies were formed by virtue of Presidential Decree number 86 signed on December 31, 1972. Through Presidential Decree number 86A, these citizens' assemblies held a referendum from January 10 to 15, 1973 for the ratification of the Constitution. On January 17, 1973, Proclamation number 1102 deemed the 1973 Constitution ratified despite much opposition.
Differences between the 1973 Constitution and the 1987 Constitution, along with a draft of a proposed 2018 Federal Constitution, can be seen in a table uploaded on the website of Arrancada, Philippines. The table compares counterpart section between each constitution, although there are articles and sections in the 1973 Constitution with no discernible counterpart in the 1987 Constitution and vice versa.
Some releasing differences in the 1973 and 1987 Constitution include the use of divine province in the preamble of the 1973 Constitution and Almighty God in the 1987 Constitution. The minimum age on the day of the election to be elected president, which is 50 in the 1973 Constitution and 40 in the 1987 Constitution. And the lawmaking body, which is the unicameral National Assembly in the 1973 Constitution and the bicameral Congress in the 1987 Constitution.
Well, nung panahon ng time ng 1970 Constitution, meron ang martial law, di ba? Isang advantage doon, kahit pa paano nakita mo may disiplina, may disiplina ng tao, di ba? Bawal lumabas ng araw, bawal gumimik, ibig sabihin na lahat ng mga pamilya, yung mga tatay, umuwi galing sa bahay, muna po yung pamilya, no? Dahil may martial law, dahil sa Constitution, pero ang disadvantage doon, nakikita yung karapatan naman ng tao para magmungkahin ng gusto nila, no? Pag magsabi ka ng bagay na laban sa gobyerno, ang mangyayari sa'yo mapapasahan ka. No? Kung kilala niyo si Ariel Oreta, hindi niyo nakilala yan, mga sa dating hindi host lang, pero meron pa sa radio program ngayon. No? Ang kanyang, nag-joke siya sa TV. No? Sabi niya, kasi merong slogan noon, no? ang gobyerno ng Marcos, sabi niya, sa ikaulad ng bayan, disiplina ang kailangan. So ang ginawa, pinarusahan siya, pinaputas sa camp namin, no? Bisikleta siya ng bisikleta ng hapon. So gano'n, no? Pero nadidisiplina nga, no? Kaya lang, yung kalapatan naman para yan, katulad mag-joke, at saka nakikita yun, no? Dito sa 1987 Constitution, yung pamamahala naman ng gobyerno mo, binigyan lahat ng kalayaan, no? So, ang disadvantage nun, lahat pwede nang bumatikos, medyo magulo. So, hanggang sa ngayon, nakikita yung epekto. Konti lang, ingay, no? Nawawala sa focus ang gobyerno. Yung advantage ng isang unicameral form of government, mas madali magsabatas. Taas na kamay, sino gusto ng bigas? Kaya napasa. Ito yun ang biro nun, nang pinasay 1973. No? hindi by ballot, no? Dito sa 1987, by ballot, no? Tapos, meron tinatawag na Amendment number 6 dito sa 1973. Yung Amendment number 6, yun yung power na niretain ni President Marcos noon para magsabatas, na gumawa ng sarili ng batas. 1973, ang sinasabi nila kasi, no, na gusto mag-retain ng power si Marcos, no, dahil tapos na yung term niya, no, sa President. Dati kasi, ito pa isang difference, no? Sa term ng President, dati nung 1935 Constitution, pwede yung 8 years, no? 4 years, tapos another, elected by another 4-year term, ano? So, bali 8 years, no? Kaya, ang ginawa ni Marcos, nag-ano sila ng constitutional convention para magbago yung constitution, ano? Pagkatapos, paano yun, nag-declare muna ng martial law noong 1972, no? In September. Tapos tapos na-approve yung 1970 Constitution sometime in January yata.
Sakyan nawa ko ng Diyos.
1973 Constitutional Authoritarianism. In 1965, Ferdinand E. Marcos was elected as president. In 1967, Philippine Congress passed a resolution calling for constitutional convention to change the 1935 Constitution. Marcos won the re-election in 1969 in a bid boosted by campaign overspending and the use of government funds. Election of delegates was in November 20, 1970. Convention started formally on June 1, 1971 with former President Carlos Garcia. After he died, Diosdado Macapagal succeeded. Delegates were placed behind the bars and others had voluntary exile. Marcos dictated some provisions of the Constitution, manipulating the document. November 29, 1972, proposed constitution was approved. Communist insurgency happened, and then the martial law was declared. In parliamentary government, the legislative power was vested in a unicameral National Assembly. The president is elected as a symbolic and ceremonial head of state who will serve for 6 years and could be re-elected to an unlimited number of terms. The Prime Minister has the executive power and the Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces.
Presidential Decree Number 73, setting the date of the plebiscite to ratify or reject the proposed Constitution on November 13, 1973. Citizen assemblies were held from January 10 to 15, 1973. Voting by hand. Ratify the Constitution. suspend the convening of the Interim National Assembly, continue the martial law, place a moratorium on elections for a period of at least several years.
In January 17, 1973, issued a proclamation wherein the Constitution has been ratified by the overwhelming vote of the members of the highly irregular citizen assemblies. In 1976, citizen assemblies decided to allow the continuation of the martial law and the following amendments. First, interim batasang pambansa to substitute for the interim national assemblies. Second, the president to become the prime minister. And lastly, martial law was lifted for the emergency basis.
In 1980, retirement age of the members of judiciary was extended to 70 years. In 1981, parliamentary to French style, executive power to the president, executive committee will be created from minister and 14 others and serve as the president's cabinet. Some electoral reform was instituted. In 1984, executive committee was abolished and the vice president was restored. In 1980, situation had been very turbulent. As Marcos amassed power, discontent has also been burgeoning. August 1893, Benigno came over. The most credible alternative was assassinated after his exile from US. And then, the EDSA People Power Revolution happened.
1973 Constitution, way for President to keep executing powers, abolish the Senate, never act as a parliamentary system but an authoritarian presidential system.
Isa raw sa pinakamadumi at pinakamarahas na eleksyon sa bansa, ang snap presidential elections ni dating Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos noong 1986. Hindi na raw natiis ng mga mamamayan, mahirap man o mayaman.
Kung sila ay nako-contribute ng campaign funds.
Kaya lumaban na maging ang mga maituturing na elite. Kasama ang iba pa niyang kaibigang negosyante, itinatag ni Jose Concepcion o mas kilala sa pangalang JOCON ang NAMFREL o National Citizens Movement for Free Elections. Bakit niyo po naisipan na kailangan ng NAMFREL noong 1986?
Dahil nakita natin sa mga halalan before that, talagang walang nagbabantay, walang nangyayari.
Ang NAMFREL dito raw mismo sa bahay ni Jocon isinilang.
Saan po kinonceptualize ang NAMFREL? Sa baba?
Oo.
Can you recall for us, sir, yung mga araw na yon that you were meeting here with NAMFREL?
With NAMFREL. Doon nagmi-meeting kami. Doon, and we were discussing anong gagawin natin, whatever it is. No? So, the year, quite a lot, 40% of our meetings per year. Pagkatapos, doon na talaga sa RFF.
Nagpapasalamat sa inyo lahat. Inyong tangkilig sa akin sa loob ng 20 taon.
Sa nangyaring snap elections, agad na idineklarang panalo si Marcos. Pero mariin din itong tinutulan ng mga bantay bayan o mga miyembro ng NAMFREL.
Pwede niyo po ba ikwento sa amin yun?
Doon sa snap elections, talagang napakalaki ang bantay namin doon. No? Nung nangyayari na binubuhat nila mga ballot box, talagang kinukuha natin ng ballot box sa kanila. Sa mga politiko, bakit kayo maghahawak ng ballot box?
Ano po yun no? Parang there was really an attempt to cheat.
An attempt to cheat, oo. Dahil biro mo, pag ikaw makakuha ng balota, makakapasok na miskinano doon sa loob.
Nagsagawa ng Operation Quick Count ang halos 500,000 volunteer ng NAMFREL. Ang lumabas na resulta, panalo si Corazon Aquino ng halos 1 milyong boto laban kay Marcos. Bagamat idineklara ng presidente si Marcos,
I,
Corazon Cojuangco Aquino,
Corazon Cojuangco Aquino,
ang resulta ng NAMFREL quick count ang mas pinagkatiwalaan ng madla.
people in the same way that the people are protecting us.
Ito na ang naging hudyat sa pagbuhos ng tao sa EDSA para sa People Power Revolution. Naging susi man ang NAMFREL sa pagpapatalsik ng diktadura, hindi ito nangyari nang walang kaakibat na kapalit. Mahigit 60 tao ang namatay noong araw ng eleksyong iyon, kabilang na ang ilang voluntaryo ng NAMFREL.
Then when I went there, I saw he had yung NAMFREL booklet and there was a pool of blood talaga nahulog. Ang nangyari is that while they were counting the ballots, pinasukan sila at talagang inaagaw pagkatapos binaril siya.
Hanggang ngayon po, masakit po sa inyo itong pag naaalala nyo sila.
Oo. And you know, when I ever to go there, I really embraced the mother or so on. And you know, yung embrace na yun has so much meaning. Because it's not just namatay siya, we did not care about him. I have to go there and show how we cared.
Ang tamis ng tagumpay na natamasa nila, may halo rin palang mapapait na alaala. Alaala ng panahon na naging mitsa ang iilan sa kasaysayan ng isang bayan.
I signed Proclamation number 1081, placing the entire Philippines under martial law.
Sa alaala ng kasamang Bobby at mga bayani ng Mindiola. Tayo ay naririto bilang kabilang ng kabuuan. Tubig, apoy at abo, isip, sikmura, buto at laman. Nagtitibay ng maraming bagay, ngunit ang buhay ng ating kilusan ay mga buhay, ay mga buhay. Buhay na inilaan, buhay na huwaran, buhay na ilalay sa bayan.